Minerals are inorganic substances which are required by our body for normal functioning. You may have heard in this COVID situation that along with vitamin C and vitamin D tablets, doctors also suggest to have zinc tablets. The reason why zinc tablets are advised by the doctor is that these zinc tablets help in increasing the immunity of an individual. You may have experienced that at times when you are trying to chop the veggies, especially onion, you start having a running nose and eyes also start running. You start crying after cutting the onion. It is all because of presence of sulfur in it. Sulfur helps in detoxifying your body, and that's the reason onions are to be used in your food products. Next important substance about which you may have heard about is iron. Iron is present in spinach and most of the products, especially the ones which look red in color. Manganese, this iron is the central metal ion in case of RBCs, and RBC you all are aware of, red blood cells. These red blood cells help in transferring oxygen to the entire body. So in that way oxygenation is only possible with the help of iron as a metal. So iron is quite important in that way. It helps in forming the central metal ion of the RBC molecule. Next important mineral which you may have heard about is the phosphorus as well as the calcium. Phosphorus and calcium, they are helpful in calcification of the bones. So the bones, they become much more rigid and they become calcified. There is continuous deposition of calcium in them. So in that way calcium and phosphorus is also very important. Rest of the other minerals are also important, but maybe you have never heard about it. I would just like to tell you all about one of them, like two of them, so that you can use your previous knowledge in order to understand it. One of them is this chloride. During the process of digestion, HCl is required in the stomach in order to maintain a pH. That pH maintenance is done with the help of hydrochloric acid. This hydrochloric acid has presence of these chloride ions, and these chloride ions along with hydrogen form hydrochloric acid, and it performs two functions. First function is killing all the germs or killing any of the germs who have survived the buccal cavity and have reached till the stomach. And second important thing is that it helps in conversion of pepsinogen into pepsine. Both these functions are very vital for the digestion of proteins. So you can correlate your understanding about digestion and how that HCl is formed in the stomach and helps in this entire process. Next important thing which I would like to discuss with you all will be the sodium. Now, during blood pressure, high blood pressure, if any individual is suffering from high blood pressure, doctors always suggest them not to have very high amount of salt. It is because the table salt has presence of NaCl. So Na means the sodium. Sodium helps in elevating, or it helps in thinning the blood. If the blood is thin, so it will flow very fast, and this causes even more increase in blood pressure. So that's why it is always suggested to have just little amount of salt, not very high amount. The salt requirement by our body is already fulfilled by the fruits and vegetables which we are consuming. Even the water has some amount of salt within it. We don't need to consume any more salt, but still salt is consumed by us because we want our taste buds to be satisfied, and that's why at times, because of consumption of high amount of sodium or accumulation of high amount of sodium in our body, we face high blood pressure problems. So why are we discussing about the minerals and human body? So that we can relate the human body, how the requirement of human body and the plants is quite similar. The way human beings, they require minerals, some of the minerals are required in very high quantity, like the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. They are required in very high amount. The entire body is made up of those all substances. But the rest substances, these all other minerals, they are also required, but they are required in trace amounts. But these trace amounts are also quite important, because if they are not present or provided to the human beings, then they start showing malfunctioning because of lack of these minerals. So we got an idea that the way human body requires these all minerals, similar is the case of plants. Plants also require nutrients for proper functioning of their entire body. So the nutrients which are required by the plants are classified into two categories. The first one is micronutrients, second category is of macronutrients. The way their name is, micro means they all are required in trace amounts or very less amounts, and the macronutrients, they are required in large quantity. The macronutrients, they are generally nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. These three are said to be macronutrients. Because nitrogen, you all have an idea that why nitrogen is very important for a plant's body or any individual's body. The reason for that is the structure of DNA has presence of nitrogenous bases. As the name nitrogenous bases, so you can very well think about it that these nitrogenous bases definitely has the presence of nitrogen compound within them. So DNA can only be made with the help of these nitrogenous substances, nitrogenous bases basically, and over there we need the nitrogen. Other than that, all the proteins, they all are made up of amino acids. Amino acids have presence of these nitrogen compounds within them. So nitrogen serves a very important function. Now for others also there are important functions, but we'll discuss about them later on. That is about the macronutrients. What about micronutrients? Micronutrients are all these ones which are written in small size. For example, this boron, zinc, iron, copper, magnesium, molybdenum, calcium, chlorine, sulfur, manganese. All these are said to be micronutrients. Micronutrients means they are required in small quantity, but their importance is very high. For example, I'll give you an example of molybdenum. Okay, you may have heard that about some of the leguminous plants. The leguminous plants, one example I can give you, most of the plants which produce the pulses, they are said to be leguminous, and one of the example is of a pea plant. When you uproot a pea plant, you see the presence of roots. In the roots, there are these kind of globular structures which are present. These globular structures are filled with something tough within it, and these are known as the root nodules. Okay, the root nodules have presence of a bacterium within it, and the name of the bacterium is rhizobium. Whenever you write rhizobium, you underline it. R should be capital because it is the scientific name, and whenever we write scientific names, R should be capital and all the next letters should be in alphabet, should be in small. So rhizobium is present inside this nodule and performs conversion of atmospheric nitrogen to usable nitrogen. So this usable nitrogen is present in the form of ammonia, and ammonia helps in ammonia can only be taken up by the roots of the plants and can be absorbed. So water along with this ammonia is taken up by the roots and is provided to the plants for their normal function. This is just about one of the micronutrients which I have talked about. Now, we can very well correlate that the way plants require these all minerals, similarly, the nutrients are required by the plants. So now we have a clear idea about both the plants and human beings. As we proceed, we have our next chapter, that is absorption by roots. In this chapter, we will study the morphology or the outer structure of roots at first, and then after, the function of the roots. If we see the structure of the roots, it has presence of root cap. Root cap is a region which has high deposition of various substances like pectin and cellulose. An outermost sclerenchymatous tissue has presence of dead cells or the cork cells. These cork cells can be very well understood if you see if you see any plant, the outermost covering is said to be made up of cork cells. Now, when we are looking into this structure, the outermost pointed structure or the lowermost pointed structure, this structure is known as the root cap. It has a tough covering because it has to penetrate through the soil, and even rocks may come in between. So it shouldn't have bruises over it. So a tough covering is protecting it from the outer sources, outer harmful substances, as well as outer harsh environmental condition. So root cap is being protected, and it is still growing inwards in order to reach to certain more depths of soil, so that it can have much more access to water. Just above this region of the root cap area, there is presence of another area which is known as the region of elongation. In between the region of elongation, there is a small site which is known as a meristematic tissue region, or the region of elongation. This region of elongation has presence of this meristematic tissue, and because of meristematic tissue, the region of elongation is actually undergoing continuous mitosis in order to increase the number of cells. The cells which are formed upper to the region of elongation, that area adds up to the region of maturation, whereas the area which is added to the lower part, that is the region of division, or that is the area over where it is going to add towards the root cap area. You may have noticed that in this entire structure of the root, we do not see the presence of root hair in this area or the region of elongation. The main reason behind this is the root hairs are only present in the matured area of the root, not in the area which is undergoing continuous mitosis, or in the area which is having the presence of root cap, because the presence of root cap, the function is completely different. It is continuously taking up water. The root hair cells, they are continuously taking up water, whereas the root cap needs to be tensile and hard so that it can help in continuous movement deeper inside the soil. So the presence of water will make it soft, and it won't be capable of performing its function properly. So there is absence of root hair in this region of division or region of elongation. And this is all about the structure of root. Next is the function of the roots. Basically, there are only few functions of the roots. The first function is increasing the depth. This is something which you should write and you should know about. It helps in growing deep inside the soil so that it can deep in the soil with the help of root cap, so that it can get access to large amount of water reservoirs. Second important thing is this absorption of water and minerals. This is a primary thing or primary important factor or activity performed by the roots. It has to take up water, and it takes it up from the roots. Next important thing is the fixation of nitrogen. Fixation of nitrogen we have already discussed. With the help of rhizobium bacteria, the atmospheric nitrogen gets converted into usable nitrogen, that is ammonia. Third important thing is, along with water, minerals as well as nutrients are taken up and they are forwarded to the xylem. This is all about the structure of the root and function of the root from the chapter Absorption by Roots. Let's summarize. The entire structure of the root is as such that it has presence of root cap, region of elongation which is made up of meristematic tissue, and the region of maturation which has presence of root hair cells. And the function of roots is helps in absorption of water, minerals as well as nutrients through the xylem. Second important thing is fixation of nitrogen, so that the nitrogen can be taken up by as a mineral inside the plant by converting it into ammonia. And third important or fourth important thing is that presence of root cap, which helps in elongation of the root surface area.